Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you all so much for being with us today. I'm Samantha Hersher, the Director of Marketing at Talentfoot, and we're so glad that you joined us for this Ask a Digital Marketing Recruiter Anything Q&A. In case you don't know about us, we are an executive search and staffing firm. We partner with hiring teams from Series B funded startups to Fortune 50 companies to identify proven sales, marketing, technology, advertising, and HR executives. Today, we're focusing on your questions about digital marketing hiring, and I'm joined by a subject matter expert, and I know you're going to learn a lot from her. Amanda Kelly is an executive partner, and she's the leader of Talentfoot's corporate marketing practice. She's been an executive recruiter for more than a decade, placing candidates in positions from product marketing manager, director of marketing, all the way up to the CMO, among many others. Her passion for emerging media, innovative technology, coupled with her expertise in digital advertising and marketing, has led to this natural specialization in digital marketing. She's worked with clients ranging from startups to nationwide brands like Aldi, Smile Direct Club, and Peloton. And like I said, I know you're going to learn a lot from Amanda. So thanks so much for being here today, Amanda.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming today.
Okay, so let's just jump right in because we did get some questions ahead of the event. So we're going to kick it off with those. So somebody wrote in and asked about return to office. Are companies going back? Is it hybrid or 100% in the office? Like, what are you seeing in the market?
Yeah, I know this has been just a really hot topic because I think a lot of companies are doing things differently. And I'd say that I actually probably haven't hired a 100% remote role since last year. So most of our clients are going back in office. And there's a big variety to that, though. So some are maybe 2 days, but some are all 4 days. And just a few companies are probably doing the 5 days. But I think what remains the same is that everybody wants some flexibility. So, you know, the companies that are requiring the 5 days in office, I think are just going to have a harder time recruiting because that's just hard after being 100% remote. I think people got used to a new lifestyle and really find it important to have that work life balance. So if you have 4 days in office, I actually had a client that did something really unique that I like. So to require the 4 days in office, what they did as like a trade-off and to also just seem more attractive, they're offering half day Fridays all year round. So not just a summer Friday. So a half day Fridays all year round if you do those 4 days in office with an extra hour each day. And I thought, well, that's a nice trade-off. I think people can wrap their minds around, oh, well, I have to go in 4 days, but at least Fridays I'm at home and I can work half the day. So maybe I could travel. It just makes your weekends seem, a little bit longer.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
I think I might like that.
And and I think too, it's the commute is a big factor. So if
Sure.
you're wanting 4 days in office, but you're really far out in the suburbs, I mean, obviously that's going to be harder than 4 days in office in the city. So
Mhm. Okay, so how about let's dig in a little bit specifically to marketers.
mhm.
What would you say is one of the top things you're looking for on an executive marketing resume?
So, when I look at a resume, honestly, I'm not reading word for word, and that may surprise some people because I think people do put a lot of work into their resume and they're really concerned with what it says. But honestly, I want to look at it and have it have some white space. I want to be able to read it easily. I want to be able to scan it and see what's popping out to me. And so typically what's popping out is metrics. So I think what's really important as a digital marketer, especially, is that you are showing that you can drive growth, that you can make an impact, and on your resume, a bullet point with that metric with some sort of percentage of growth that you've driven, or maybe it's a cost reduction, money you're saving the company. That really does stand out to me, and I think it's important that you are showing a natural progression. And I also am looking at, have you been a job hopper? Are you changing jobs every single year? That doesn't look great because then you haven't had the time to make much of an impact. But at the same time, I'm also, there can be a story behind that. So if you are somebody who has some of those, you can put a note in there of, why you made those moves. So I think, you don't have to be too worried about, having every single, piece of your experience listed there. Just really drive home some of those impacts that you made.
Mhm. You know, I'm just curious, and I know I didn't ask you this ahead of time, so forgive me for springing this on you, but do you see digital marketers, like, anywhere from the marketing manager up to the C-suite? Do you see them with, portfolios, like, what their specific websites about their accomplishments, or is that more towards the creatives?
I think that is definitely more common with creatives, but I
Mhm,
have seen a lot of digital marketers put together, just work samples. So,
mhm.
especially those that are maybe geared a little bit more towards e-commerce. So they may have, a portfolio of some of the e-commerce sites they've worked on, or some of go as far to put together sort of like a visual chart. You know how you can make resumes in a different way sometimes,
Yeah,
and they maybe make a pie chart of their experience, and maybe
cool,
they break down their skill set. So a digital marketer, typically you've got experience in paid search and SEO and paid social. So maybe they might have a nice visual for that. I think that's not something that's necessary, but hey, I think if you have that, it's definitely not going to hurt you.
cool. Okay. How important is a LinkedIn profile?
Well, I think if you want to be found by a recruiter, you have to have a LinkedIn profile. So and it's funny because whenever I have someone interview, I always like to share the LinkedIn profile for the hiring manager with my candidates. And when the hiring manager doesn't have a LinkedIn profile, it can be seen as just strange. You're like, well, how do I
Mhm.
find out about this person? So I think, having a basic LinkedIn profile is great. And you don't have to, same as the resume. You don't have to really overthink everything you say in there, but I do think a couple things are important if you're wanting to be found by recruiters. So, the keywords are the main thing there. So you're going to want to, instead of just having something really generic like, manage a digital marketing team, you may want to really list out what are the different digital marketing channels and tactics you have experience in, because those are typically the keywords that I'm looking for. So it would be, like I said, paid search, paid social, email marketing,
Mhm.
CRM, all of those different kind of keywords would be great to have in there, because that's usually what we're searching for, because we're wanting to know what is your expertise. Where do you have most of that experience? And then, of course, you always want to have a clear professional photo. I remember when LinkedIn first started, I think we all
Mhm.
put up a random picture. It might be us, with our arms around somebody.
Yeah.
At this point, though, I'd say most people do have a nice professional photo. And this does not have to be something that is, a professional took that photo. It can be someone can take it, with their iPhone for you. But as long as you are alone in that photo and it looks professional, that's great. And then I always like in that about me section, you can put something short and sweet. And this is a great spot if you want to showcase a little bit about your personality. So I often find people put just a short sentence that says like some of their interests. And
Mhm.
I like that because you never know. Maybe I'm recruiting for a company in fitness, and then you've written, that that's a passion of yours. And so I can make that connection. And so I think adding a little bit about your personality, that's a great spot to add that.
And something I just wanna add to that is that when it comes to professional headshots, I know it's can be a little intimidating, and there's actually AI tools that you can use to build your own professional headshot, which I've seen the results. Some of them are questionable, but some of them are excellent. So, if you need a new photo, I recommend that. Okay, one more question
I just want to
that
add one
we
thing on that
oh,
too.
go ahead.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say, with resume and LinkedIn, if you do have questions and you're just wondering, Amanda, what does this look like? You can always feel free to reach out to me. I can look that stuff over very quickly and give you my honest opinion and give you a couple tips. So
Awesome. Okay. We've got one more question, ahead of time, and then I see we've got tons coming in, so we will try to get to as many as we can. So, we had a question about ageism in marketing hiring. And when I read it, kind of one of the first things that I thought was at Talentfoot, we really one of our core values as an organization is diversity. And we know that diversity comes in all different shapes and forms. And so something that we work on as an organization is really supplying our hiring managers with a slate of diverse candidates, because we know that leaders and executives, like, um, they don't have to be uniform, right? The best ideas really come from diverse groups. So
Mhm.
I would say that's one thing that I can say, that I can speak to, as a firm, that we really prioritize diversity.
Yeah, I'd say we've seen from a lot of our clients just everyone making this a huge priority, which I really, really like. And they push us to make it a priority, which then makes me in turn push my next client who maybe isn't thinking about it. So I think it's been really great the effort a lot of people have been putting into really just making sure we're being equitable and considering all different types of candidates. And
Mhm.
so I've never really seen a client, not interview someone due to age. I think what might come up is sometimes assuming that their compensation may be higher. And what I'd say is, as a recruiter, when I'm reaching out to candidates, I'm not filtering out people that I think could be too expensive. I'd rather find that fact out on my own. And that's why it's so important. Just, take the call, talk to me, tell me what you're looking for, and I'll tell you right there if, oh, you know what, your compensation expectations are too high. They can't go that high, but I'll keep you in mind for when that comes up. Um, or we may find out, you know what, you are in that right range, and this would be a great next step for you. So I think it's just important to be transparent, and then it's important for us recruiters and hiring teams to just be more open.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna scroll back a little bit because we've had quite a few come in. I'm gonna hit you with some of them, Amanda. Um, how do you think how's the market looking for digital marketers in terms of hiring? Are we still seeing open jobs out there for marketers? Are we working on them? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the beginning of this year was a little bit slower. I think all of us were hearing about a lot of layoffs going on. And
Yes.
I think some companies maybe slowed down hiring a little bit, or were being a little bit more thoughtful, because I think about 2 years ago, we were hiring way too fast. And so I think things
Mhm.
just slowed down a little bit, really trying to make sure they hire the right role and the right person. And
Right,
we are still very busy, though. Digital marketing is a very highly sought after skill set, because that's what companies need to continue to advance. And I think those roles will always be in demand. And I think one of the things, it depends on what level you are. So the higher you go, obviously there's going to be less C-suite roles and probably a lot more manager roles open. So
right. I saw another question, just asking about kind of the market for VP roles,
mm,
and I think that kind of dovetails into exactly what you were just talking about, right? Like,
yeah,
the higher you go, the less opportunities there are, but
mm,
we're not seeing the market close. It's not like 2020. We are not back there.
right.
It's not where we
Yeah, and I'd
we're
say there's more of the leadership roles open right now than there were back in January, February. So I think it's definitely picking back up.
yeah.
And I have a leadership role I've been working on for probably a month, and it's been moving really, really quickly, because they were
Oh,
ready to hire. They knew exactly what they were looking for, and I think candidates that are looking, they know what they're looking for too. I think that's really helpful, and it's helping move the process along.
okay. How about this one? Are companies still asking for references?
That's interesting. I have noticed that companies don't actually ask for references that often.
Really? I'm surprised to hear that.
Yes. And at Talentfoot, though, we do like to always ensure that we are checking that box and speaking with references. It's actually a great tool for onboarding, because often, one of the questions I'm asking references are, I'll say, what would be good advice for this candidate's new boss? And so that's a great little nugget to say, well, you know what, she hates to be micromanaged or, something like that. And that can get back to the new boss to say, you know what, that's something I want to make sure I'm really cognizant of when she joins my team. So I think references are a great thing. It's they're really not used to rule somebody out. I think they're a positive.
Okay, so we got a question about just trends in marketing hiring, any certain specializations or innovations, like that are in demand from companies. And if I may, I just want to start off by saying that um, I, as a digital marketer myself, I would say that um, incorporating AI into your workflow
Mhm.
is, at least for me, and I think from what I've seen from peers, is so important. It's really changing the way that we're working from top to bottom, from like creating presentations, sales enablement tools, um, from writing blog posts, like every aspect of digital marketing is being touched by AI for better or for worse. And so I think it's really something that my peers in digital marketing should not ignore.
And I think on that note, the way Samantha's putting that is, I think digital marketers have to be open to new channels and new ways of doing things. I think that's just always a big skill set in this space because things change every year and you have to keep up and understand the trends that make sense for your brand too. Maybe not every single channel's going to work, like, especially when we think about social media, TikTok may not work for one brand versus another. So you do have to know your brand, but you have to be open to trying new things because you never know what could really make the difference and where you could see some major growth.
For sure. Um, Doreen, you asked if you can provide your resume. You can send it to us via email at info@talentfoot.com, or you can submit it on our website. We've got a question from Jackie. How important is a cover letter, and how much experience is too much? Okay, let's start with this one. How important is a cover letter?
Honestly, you really don't need one. I think that's another thing. It's with the resume. I think people do worry and overthink it. Um, if you have a cover letter, great, but if you don't, that's going to be fine. So I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Okay.
One thing to
Um,
add to that though too is that I think my conversation with people, usually that's what really matters because I'm not just judging you based on your LinkedIn profile or your resume. I really, when I speak with you and ask you questions and I'm finding out about, what your interests are, what your skill set is, you know, and then finding out, are you interested in this company that I'm working with and can you be passionate about their mission? That's the stuff that really matters.
the second part of this question is, how much experience is too much experience for candidates? And if you don't mind me jumping in first, Amanda, we actually we did a couple months ago, we did another Ask a Recruiter Anything, and my colleague Ryan, I think he had a really great point as it relates to this question. He said, sometimes you might feel like an employer or hiring manager might say this candidate is like overqualified,
Mhm.
and a candidate should really be able to answer that with like telling them their story and telling them why they're interested in the position and why, yes, maybe they do have too much experience, but there's a real reason why they want this role. Maybe they don't want to be a manager anymore. Maybe they want to be hands-on and they don't want to be strategic. I mean, there's just that there's that opportunity to really share your story. So I think you should be prepared to share it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I would have said too. It's, really there's a reason why you've been in a certain role. So share that and be positive. Don't say, oh, they just never promoted me. You don't want to complain. Just share what the positives are about, why you've been in that role and what you're looking for next. It's okay if you have quote unquote, too much experience. I actually hired someone a few months ago in a retention manager role, and
Mhm.
he had actually been a director before, and this role was manager title. So I think in our instinct right away is like, oh my gosh, I'm too much experience for this manager role. But when we got down to it, the responsibilities for the manager role at this company was actually equivalent to a director at another company. So, there's just another point of be open and don't be so honed in on just like what the title is. Let's really talk about the skill set and what's required for that role.
We have a question about certifications for digital marketers to stay on top of trends. And so I guess I'm wondering, do our hiring teams ask for certain certifications, or is it kind of role specific, or what do you think about that?
It's a good question. I think I don't know if there's any certain certifications, but there'll be certain experience. So maybe if you are in a role where you're going to be using Salesforce, that might be something that we wanted to show that you've had some training on. So I don't see as much certain certifications that are required.
And I was gonna like, just to add to that, like, I think ongoing education is always awesome.
Right.
Any webinars you can attend, any training sessions. Um,
And
let's
also just
see.
being saying that, hey, you know what, maybe I'm not certified in that, but I'm willing to be. Maybe it's something like that too. You don't have to always count it out if you haven't had that experience yet.
What about, so somebody's asking about breaking through the clutter. Um, when like if you get hundreds of applications to a job posting, how can somebody stand out to a recruiter?
Yeah, the number one way to do that is just send me a message. So I think if you just are applying online and that's all you do, you're gonna get lost. And so I always give this tip that if there is a company that you are really interested in, you can apply online, but then go to the next step. Send a note to that hiring manager or who is maybe listed on the job posting. So often you might see, their director of talent acquisition. So send them a note because when they get 100 resumes, they might miss it. But when you send them
Mhm.
that direct message and you say something in there that shows why you're interested or why you're qualified, I'm most likely 100% going to respond to that. But I when I have all these resumes I don't have the time to get through, I'm not going to be able to send those personalized messages.
So for that note,
Mhm.
you recommend that you include either why you're qualified or what makes you interested in the role, or is there anything else that they should call out if they're sending you a message?
And I think honestly shorter is better because if it is too long, then whoever you're sending this note to may not read the whole thing. So just something quick and show a little bit about your personality and your interest level.
Okay, we have another question about sometimes I think you've kind of answered this, but let's just touch on it again. Sometimes gaps in work experience can be due to health issues. How can candidates stand out for entry or mid-level roles in digital marketing if you have those gaps?
I think it is totally fine. These things happen. I just had a candidate interviewing last week who actually took some time off just due to children's health issues, and I liked the way this was on the resume. It was just called out right there. That's why the gap is there. And you know what? I don't see any problem with that. And I think when you're speaking, you can explain why you had that gap. But then if you have the time, because I also believe it's like if you need to take some of that time to take care of yourself. But if let's say you did have some time, you could mention how you ensured you stayed up on what was going on in the landscape. Maybe you did take a class, or maybe you mentioned publications that you're reading regularly. Just how you're just staying, keeping that skill set sharp. I'd say.
We've got a question about a specific Google digital marketing certificate through Coursera. And I know we just touched on this a little bit
Yeah.
um, about specific courses. And I think the consensus was employers aren't necessarily like seeking out these specific courses. So,
Yeah, it's not clients I've worked with.
yeah.
It's possible with other roles, but
Um, I have got a question. Is there anything on a resume that's like an immediate red flag or something that you do not want to include?
um, Well, I think it's just a typo. I think typos, at least for me, stand
Mhm.
out. And so really just make sure that somebody has proofread your resume and make sure that your dates are accurate too. Um, I think often you get a new job and you update your resume, but you forget to put the end date, on the previous one. And then I'm confused because I'm looking at it and I'm like, did they work at both places still? Or,
Right.
what's going on here? So I think it just I think proofreading and making sure everything is buttoned up is the biggest thing.
And not to, belabor the point too much, but there's also AI tools you can use
Yeah.
to proofread for you, and I use them, when I'm writing blog posts or what have you, to give you, like, that extra safety net. Another question is, um, what about GPAs on resume? Even for entry level or manager, like, is that relevant? Do employers care about GPAs, or is that just, like, a thing of the past?
This like makes me laugh because I remember when we were in high school and we're trying to pick where we're going to college, we thought it was the biggest deal in the world, like where we were going to go and what our
Mhm.
GPA was. And you know what? I never look at that stuff. I think it matters that you did most employers for the roles I'm working on do want that degree, just the undergrad degree, but I really don't think people are looking that carefully at what your GPA was or where you went to college. So
What about the MBA for marketers? How important is it?
yeah, there's certain roles that do require MBAs. Typically, they are more of those brand management type of roles at
Mhm.
CPG companies. That's where I see it more often. But I also think it's not as big of a requirement as it used to be.
Okay, we've got just a couple minutes left. So I just want to add, if anybody has a question, please feel free to put it in the chat because we're gonna wind down. Um, I'm just looking at my list here to see if I missed any questions. Um, let's see. Any advice you can give on leveling up your career in marketing?
I think within your current role, just continue to raise your hand, ask to take on projects that could give you exposure to new channels, to new team members. I think that's just going to help you continue to learn and build upon your skill set.
Okay, last question here from Suzanne. Is it better to leave dates off your resume for your graduation dates or job title or jobs if it's more than 15 years old?
You know what I've seen that people will do, they'll have their last three, four jobs, have a lot more information in detail. And then anything prior to that, they'll have a very short section
Mhm.
of just maybe the company title and years. And I would include that because often when I'm working for a certain client, let's just say they're a CPG company. So I'm scanning your resume really quick to see did you ever work at another CPG company. So I wouldn't leave that stuff off because you never know what kind of impact it could make.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, we've got one more. On the MBA question, how common are we seeing the companies providing reimbursement for continuing education or an advanced degree? She says she hasn't seen it as often lately. I'm curious about that too. Are you seeing that with the companies that we're working with?
I have not seen that with my clients offering that. I've definitely
Mhm.
talked to candidates though that tell me they can't make a move at this time due to the MBA reimbursement. So
Uh-huh.
some of the companies, I'm trying to think of some of the companies those candidates have been at. It's typically the larger ones in the Chicago area, the bigger retailers and CPG companies.
Right. Well, okay, our time is up. Amanda, thank you so much for being here today. To our audience, thank you so much for your great questions and your engagement. Please make sure that you connect with Amanda and I on LinkedIn. And then don't forget to subscribe to our LinkedIn newsletter. You'll get great information about our upcoming events and tips for hiring managers and job seekers alike. So thanks everybody so much and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Amanda.
Bye.
Bye.